First item on the agenda is counterculture coffee. Maru?
Hi.
The staff will make a presentation first. It's okay.
Good evening, Chair Cardoza, Commission members. First item is the Counterculture Coffee. The site is located on 64th Street. And this is the location. The site may look familiar to you because this was the same site for which the Commission approved a use permit earlier this year in May for a laundry and dry cleaning service. I think it was called Napa Linen. That project did not work out, so the same space is now being applied for a use permit for a coffee roaster. So as you can see, it's located off 64th Street, and it's in the Klinknerville building, which was recently refurbished, and it's about 12,000 square foot space. So the front door of the Counter Coffee Culture, which is a wholesale coffee roaster, they're based in North Carolina, and they're wishing to open up shops in the West Coast, and this is one of the first ones in California. So their front door would be located, let's see, on 64th Street. There is a parking lot on the site, and they will have the use, and they have a lease for about 7 spaces. In terms of this floor plan, the front area would be used for front office as well as the lobby. Most of the activity would take place in this area, which is basically the assembly area. You'll have the roaster and the packaging. A lot of storage of green beans will occur here. The deliveries will occur on the back side here. And as you can see, there is enough of a curvature to make the turns for the vans. These are some of the existing site photos of the site. In terms of the operating characteristics of this operation, the hours are 7 to 5:30, Monday to Friday. About 5 to 10 full-time employees are expected to work. That 8 part-time employees is inaccurate. They do not intend to have any part-time employees at this time. Typically, the deliveries will occur twice a day during regular business hours, and the type of trucks would be the UPS type. In terms of conformity to our regulations, the use is classified as food production and assembly, which is allowed with a conditional use permit in the OT/DH zone. OT stands for Office Technology, and DH is the Doyle-Hollis zone within the OT. In terms of parking requirements, the range is a minimum of 7 to a maximum of 12, and as mentioned before, they have a lease to lease out 7 spaces in the shared parking lot. In terms of bike parking, the requirement is 2 interior and 2 exterior. They are showing 4 interior, and there is a condition of approval that which requires them to provide 2 exteriors when they come in for their building permit. So that concludes my presentation, and our approval at this time is, our recommendation, is for approval subject to the conditions of approval. The applicant is here, both the owner from North Carolina as well as the architect who drew the drawings that you have in your packet. So unless you have questions from me, I would hand it over to the applicant.
Do we have any questions?
I do have one question. Is there, I flipped through the conditions, but I, just very quickly, and so I wasn't able to see, is there a standard condition, or either that or a zoning standard that odors not be perceptible beyond the property line, or something?
That's a standard performance standards that any operation has to, by law, adhere to.
Okay.
I also had a question, and this is follow-up to my email earlier to you this week about the air quality permit.
Correct.
Is that something that we need to be concerned with at this time, that they, prior to moving into the building, that they acquire their
We typically do not get involved in in permits that are required. For example, a lot of the restaurants require a permit from the county health, so that is typically checked at the building permit stage. So an applicant is required to adhere to all laws, all applicable laws, whether they are state or county. So if a permit is required by the air quality, then they need to get that.
I would note that there is a standard condition of approval which is included in this project that says, prior to the issuance of a building permit, the applicant shall submit to the building official copies of all other permits necessary from the applicable regulatory agencies.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
And would that also relate to noise? I mean, I'm not sure. This might not be something that creates a lot of noise, but...
Noise would be looked at in our standard performance conditions, so they need to comply with the performance standards of the noise that are applicable here. There's no permit that is required from any entity at this time regarding noise. They just need to adhere to our noise regulations.
There is, however, a standard condition that says the project shall operate in order to limit noise exposure to those levels set forth in the Emeryville Municipal Code and the general plan. I mean, you don't really need to say that in the conditions of approval because it's required anyway, but we put it in there as a reminder.
If that is all, should I hand it over to the applicant?
My name's Fred Heyer. I'm the architect. I worked on the Klinknerville development and put together the drawings that you see for the counterculture coffee. And I'm here to answer any questions if you have any. Also, Brett Smith is the owner of Counterculture Coffee, and he's here from North Carolina.
Hi. Yes, I don't have a formal presentation, but I'm certainly prepared to answer any questions you might have. And if you'd like, I can give a little background, more of a background on counterculture. Or I'll take any questions.
I just have a quick question. In the staff report, it mentioned there was a watercolor rendering of the project, but I didn't see it in the plan, so I was hoping maybe if you had that, if you could put it up on the monitor.
I'm not sure that I have a copy of that. That was when we did the...
Can you speak into the microphone, please?
Sure. We did the watercolor rendering as part of the design review improvements for the Klinknerville development. So it wasn't part of Counterculture's submittal per se.
I think that language was inadvertently carried over from the previous project that was at the same location.
Okay.
It was not included in this packet.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I will offer a quick answer to the question about noise. There's not a noise concern with this. It's not a loud operation.
So part of the conditional use permit does provide parking for bikes outside?
Yes,
Okay.
they are required to provide 2 exterior bike parking, and they have 4 interior right now.
How is the smell mitigated? Not that the smell of coffee isn't wonderful, but sometimes it can be a bit overwhelming. There's a couple of other coffee roasters in the neighborhood.
Yeah, there's actually one about a block away, McLaughlin. So part of the roasters themselves, they have, part of the roasters, the machine itself, it has what is called an afterburner, which takes care of the particulates, and it also mitigates the smell. There is, to a small degree, there will be some smell, but it is primarily mitigated by the roasting process itself, by the afterburner.
Have another question?
I've got a couple questions. In your proposal, you mentioned education, or education's mentioned, but then I can never really glean from the proposal what kind of education was intended. Is this education of people coming to your center to learn the process of roasting, or?
No, it's so our headquarters is in Durham, North Carolina, and in addition to that location, we have what we call training centers in other towns. It's part of our business model to come in and work with our customers to teach them about coffee, to teach their baristas, to teach folks that work in restaurants how to prepare coffee. So that's the type of education. We have a whole curriculum that we've designed. And so we have training centers throughout, mainly on in the east, Atlanta, Asheville, D.C., Philly, New York, Boston, Chicago. And so a training aspect will be part of this location in addition to our West Coast roasting. So it's, to specifically answer your question, it's primarily for our wholesale accounts, for restaurateurs, for coffee shop owners, for folks to come in and learn about how to prepare coffee and how to sell coffee.
And there was mention somewhere, I believe, of tastings possibly in the future. And,
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. Personally, I like the idea of opening the place up and engaging the community through that process. Is that something that, I mean, when I look at your plans, I don't really see anything set up necessarily
Well,
to accommodate
that would be a part of the facility. As part of counterculture, about 10 years ago, we started this ritual of stopping everything we do at 10 o'clock on Fridays and tasting coffee, and that has evolved to something that has become something that goes just beyond our wholesale customers. So we do invite the community in and for approximately an hour and taste coffees, cup coffees.
Where would that happen within your facility?
And if you look at the diagram, so up in the office area, up here, that would be the main training area, and we would use the training area for tastings as well.
And that's during the week, Monday through Friday, or Friday rather, not
Yeah, the
not
tastings,
weekends.
the public tastings are Fridays at 10. The education classes that we have for our wholesale customers we'll have throughout the week at various times, but a couple a week usually. And of course, we'll use it as a sales, as a place to bring potential accounts to show them what we do and use it as a sales office as well.
Is there any proposed signage?
None yet.
Yeah, none yet.
That would come back to us for staff level approval, assuming it meets the criteria for staff level approval.
Any further questions? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Open the meeting to the public. Any members of the public wish to speak on this issue?
So here, talk of the afterburner for the coffee roasting here reminds me of many years ago when Pete's Coffee moved their roasting facility to Emeryville, to where their headquarters is now. They were roasting for a while, and they assured everybody that there would be no objectionable odors because they were going to install afterburners, and that that would render the whole thing odorless. Well, I'm here to tell you that that's just patently false. Sometimes the afterburners don't work, and it not only let out just kind of horrific sort of acrid odors, also just a lot of smoke. And then even when it's working properly, the smell is really acrid and it's pretty offensive. And if there's anybody living near this, I can guarantee you that you're going to hear from them. One other thing I wanted to say about people that have sort of maybe romantic notions about coffee roasting. You need to know that coffee roasting is not coffee brewing. Coffee roasting smells horrible. Coffee brewing smells good, most people think. But I've never met anybody that thinks that coffee roasting smells good. It's a burning, acrid smell. I think it would be wise for you guys to put some sort of clause in the agreement you're ready to enter with these people to make sure that there's some way to resolve the issue of this acrid smell that neighbors might complain about going down in the future, because it could come back to haunt you and the residents. I think you should not just take them at their word that it won't be a problem. I think you should just play it, trust but verify, and you should have some written agreement that accommodates this. Just a helpful opinion. Thank you.
Any further public comments? Close the public. Excuse me.
One more.
I'm called by his comments to say something. I enjoy the smell of roasting coffee. I live here. I smell it from the several places around. I assume that there would be levels of the smoke that I wouldn't enjoy, but what I do smell, I enjoy. I'm happy to. Roasting, yes.
One follow-up comment related to the roasters. They are correct in that there would be a level of smell. There's, without question. Similar to if you go by a restaurant, sometimes you can smell inside a restaurant. One of the things that we will use, one of the steps we're taking here is to buy a certain type of roaster, a roaster called a Loring, which actually recycles the roast so that it reduces, first of all, the opacity of the smoke itself, so that's not there. It's incredibly efficient, and it does cut down on the smell. So it is something that we do take into consideration, and that we want to make sure we handle it as the best that it can be handled.
Any further public comments? Close the meeting and open for discussion. Brad, you want to start?
Well, the two items that I just noticed when I walked around the site, one was there's mention in the staff or in the report of the existing landscaping in the front being sufficient, but when I walked by it, and maybe those more familiar with the plants that are there, the bamboo looked pretty sparsely planted and not doing so well, and some of the areas just looked like dirt. So it'd be nice to see some new landscaping in that front area. And then the other question I had was coming around the back, which obviously isn't the primary entrance to the space, but it's to the driveway and the parking. It's currently a chain link fence with barbed wire on top, and some of the businesses across the street seem like they're doing a reasonable job of improving their storefronts, and just kind of a shame to see the chain link fence with the barbed wire on top across the street. And I don't know if this is something that could be shared with the developer of the entire property to possibly provide a nicer fence and rolling gates there, but I think that could do a lot to improve that whole street.
I don't have any comments.
Well, I'd have to agree with you on the landscaping. And in fact, I believe in the staff report there was talk of redoing the landscaping. Is that correct?
Condition of approval.
Oh.
Is that's one of the conditions? Come on up for a second.
My understanding from reading the staff report is that it's a condition of approval that we do landscaping in the front and that we submit a landscape plan as part of the building permit.
Is there any plan for the chain link fence with the barbed wire to be taking care of that at all, or?
There's no plan to do anything with that right now. We do have, as another condition of approval, to redo the sidewalk and curb apron where it's cracked. The concrete in front there is currently broken. So that's another condition that has been agreed to.
Okay, thanks. That might be, yeah, barbed wire and chain link fence is something that we are definitely trying to get rid of in this city, and your building has it.
I just want to ask the staff if you have handy the language of that performance standard regarding odors in the planning regulations.
Sure do. Section 9-5.1110. All uses shall be operated so as not to permit matter causing offensive odors which are perceptible to the average person at or beyond any lot line of the lot containing such uses. Adequate buffer distances shall be provided between offensive odor sources and sensitive receptors, including schools, hospitals, and community centers. Cooking odors and smoke shall be controlled and prevented from becoming a nuisance to neighboring properties. an odor detected no more than 15 minutes in any one day is acceptable.
Great, thanks. Yeah, I think, given that standard in the planning regulations, I'm satisfied that the roasting odors won't, won't impact properties, or, if there were a problem, that the staff could enforce that performance standard.
Okay.
So, given that, I don't have any other comments.
The only comment I have is on the odor, and with that, of what you just read being sort of a stick, so to speak, that if it becomes a nuisance or a problem, we do have some legal ground to correct that. To me, this is kind of the industrial zone that we did in our general plan to keep an industrial area. And I think there are a lot worse industrial odors we can have than roasting coffee. So I really don't have a problem with this being here. I think it's appropriate to the neighborhood. I think it's appropriate for our city, and I'm glad they're coming.
Well, I agree with you. In my youth, I remember crossing the Bay Bridge and smelling the coffee roast from Hills Brothers Coffee, which was right on the Embarcadero, and it was, everybody enjoyed that smell as you came into San Francisco, but it turned out that the coffee was not meeting smog control standards. They had to shut it down. At any rate, I agree with you that I think it's a good project and we should go ahead with it.
Well, I would move approval with the additional condition of a new fence that is not chain link with barbed wire.
I'll second that motion.
I have just a little bit of a concern with that. Is they're not the owners of the property, and there are other tenants as well, so that will use that parking lot. So I think it's kind of onus on our part to enforce them improving that whole area, themselves. I might entertain something where they might put in some money towards doing that, and maybe the owner of the building could chip in, or the tenant that takes over the next space if it's vacant. But I think for them to improve the owner's property at their cost when others will be sharing the use of that driveway is kind of a bit much.
I tend to feel differently. I mean, as part of their improvements, and they're going to be using a portion of this parking lot.
Right, but the portion is the key word. They're using a portion.
I understand that, but I also feel that because they're still probably working or negotiating with the owner of the building, they can internally coordinate the financing of that portion of the work.
Charlie, what do you think about that? Is that
You can do that if you wish. I would ask a little further direction, though. If you want a fence that is not chain link or barbed wire, do you have a preference, or would any other kind of fence be okay? I mean, all I can think of is
something as simple
simple wrought
as
iron would be fine,
or horizontal wood.
or wood.
Yeah.
Yep.
okay. So, all right.
I have a question before we vote on the motion. So Mr. Heyer mentioned that there was a condition in the language in the use permit that said that they are required to do landscape improvements, and I just wanted to locate where that is because I don't see it right off.
I think it would be under
Page
beginning
12.
conditions of approval on site, A, number 1.
It's on page 12 of your conditions of approval.
Top one.
The commission is always welcome to augment that language.
Site landscaping plans, okay. Okay, I'm satisfied with that language. Does anyone else have any comments on that? Okay.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve with,
And the condition is that the chain link fence with barbed wire be replaced with another kind of fence. Right?
And we could add in that possibly a wood or wrought iron would be appropriate. There are other materials as well.
right, ready for the roll call? Commissioner Gunkel,
Aye.
Commissioner Keller,
Aye.
Commissioner Coomerly,
Aye.
Commissioner Tan,
Aye.
Vice Chair Moss,
Aye.
Chair Cardoza.
Aye.
6 ayes, the application is approved. This decision may be appealed to the City Council within 15 days.